took away the pressure that every independent filmmaker has, which is money.
You just use other people's money.
So we go to the...
Wait. So you guys were shooting during working hours for the restaurant?
Oh, yeah. We had permission. Did I answer your question, or did I just go on a diatribe?
I forget what the question was, but it was whatever the diatribe was, it was good. That was good.
The next thing I know, I wake up in a bathtub full of ice, missing my kidney, and I read Deadline every day, so I know what's happening in the industry so that I'm aware.
It's bad.
Yes.
So basically, what I was saying is that most of the films, if not all the films I think I've seen of you, you're playing the bad guy. Yet I know you as Tyler Slawson outside of the character, and you're like this good Christian boy.
So if somebody's going to hire me in Oklahoma City, I either have to really know them and love them, or they're going to have to offer me a lot of money.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of Off the Mark. I'm here this week with my good friend Tyler Slawson. Tyler Slawson is an actor. We've known each other for a minute. I think we met through Stan, right? Who's been a previous member of a previous guest of the podcast. And we've only met in person once, right?
That's true, but I'm hopefully going to be coming out to LA in the fall, so maybe it'll be twice in person. I've hung out with Stan twice in person. Second time we went on a trail ride at South Fork Ranch. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, so he's beating me so far. Dang, I gotta get my numbers up. Is that a Amy Winehouse cup?
No, it's Linda Gray from Dallas.
Okay.
Somebody took her mugshot from the series and made it into sort of like a pop culture thing. But I love Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, no, my cup is very Spartan today.
It looks very IKEA.
Oh, it's actually very Amazon Essentials.
Oh, okay.
But it's probably the same manufacturer. But we met through Stan. Tyler's one of my buddies in my filmmaking network. He's an actor, like I said, and you're based in Dallas, Texas, correct? Or just outside Dallas, Texas?
I'm just outside Dallas, but it is my plan to move into Dallas sometime in the next few months. So I just tell people Dallas, it's easier. Unless they're historical people, I can tell them that I'm from Denison because people will know Denison because that's where Dwight D. Eisenhower was born. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally about
cool.
2 miles from here or a mile from here.
I love watching your vlogs because you travel a lot and you do these vlogs, and we'll put those in the show notes. But you're like an encyclopedia of like all these different places you go to. Like we're in a group chat together, and you're like, I'm in, I don't know, like something Oklahoma, which is known for its salt mines, and they keep old film reels in here to keep them from decomposing. Or
that was actually in Kansas.
Yeah. It's you're one of my friends who's an encyclopedia of knowledge. But anyway, why don't you give us just a little background on you and your career, anything you want the audience to know about you.
All right. Wow. So I always loved movies growing up, and I always felt some connection to movies. And I mean, I remember being way young and saying that I wanted to be an actor, but like, it wasn't something I think I would have pursued, except for the fact that, I really began to develop a deeper relationship with Jesus in my senior year of high school. And it was in my senior year of high school that, God was talking about, I was listening to a pastor talk about on the radio, your gifts are not for you, they're for the glory of God. And it was just like I had this amazing revelation that my purpose in life was to, write, direct, produce, and act in my own films. And of course, as a Christian, and when you hear these things from God, sometimes you imagine them to be a certain way. And as you continue to kind of walk that process out, you begin to realize, okay, it's still, God's word is still valid in this situation, but I perceived it a little bit differently. And so I spent a lot of my 20s working, trying to do more behind the camera work. Now, I did some of my own work, had some ups and downs with my own career during that period of time. Mm-hmm. And then after I moved back to the middle of the country, after I'd lived in California during 2020, I was living with my parents and didn't have a job at that time. And I just started submitting to films as an actor. Mm-hmm. And to my surprise, I kept being cast.
Oh, wow. So that's usually not the case with actors. So you must be on the right track.
And so I was sort of like, it was like, man, this is a relief. First of all, I always loved the acting the most. I always thought that was the most fun. Mm-hmm. But it took away the pressure that every independent filmmaker has, which is money. so
you just use other people's money,
right? I could be in other people's projects, in the equipment, the coordinating equipment and people and cast and crew and money in that process. I didn't have to do all that. I had my script. I did the work. I showed up. I did it. And then I got to promote the film when it came out. And it's been such a delight. I'm always writing on something. And eventually, once I feel like, at a certain point, I'll return to producing my own work. But at the moment, I'm kind of riding the wave of just enjoying just being an actor.
Just enjoying the wave of not having to deal with all the stresses of being a producer. I've never heard of that's the first time I've heard someone talk about being an actor and the benefits of not being stressed out, of being the least stressful job on set.
Oh, it's so much. It's so nice. And of course, I've even done crew jobs back in the day. So like one time I got hired on by some people that liked to work with me, and they hired me to be a PA on a WWE promo shoot that they were shooting in Oklahoma City back in, what was that, 2014, December 2014.
Oh, nice.
And so I've done, and those crew jobs, are like, they're 12, 15-hour days.
Yeah.
And you're on your feet, and it is work. And so it is so different being on set as an actor, whereas you essentially just, find yourself a place and continue to review the script until it's time to go to set. And that's a very different situation. So crew, all the hats off to the crew members.
Yeah, it's their job as somebody who's worked crew. One of the jobs the PA is to take care of the actors. So you get, instead of being I can understand how it's a bit more relaxing. Did you get a trailer where you're just chilling in the your trailer until you get called to set?
So far, that hasn't happened, but I did have a green room one time, and that was pretty nice.
Oh, man, a green room. As a comedian, the green room is a luxury. So I can, I guess, so basically what I'm saying, we're both at the green level room of our career. So hopefully we'll be at the trailer level of our careers very soon.
Absolutely. We're headed in that direction.
Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, so you, I looked over your IMDb and it says you pivoted into acting. So that was before you got into acting. You were more of a cast, well, not the cast, but more of the crew side of things, PAing.
Of course.
Anything else?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I cast myself in my own work during that time. So I wasn't not acting, but it was sort of like the post 2020 was like pivoting more focused into acting. And yeah, that's kind of what that pivot represents.
Yeah, 2020 was like, it either broke you or it made you evolve. Like, I think everyone had a soul searching moment, and a lot of people shifted careers. I mean, that's when I decided I was going to move to California.
Oh,
From
really?
Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. I was stuck in lockdown in Massachusetts, and gave me a lot of time to think. And I surveyed my life and figured the best place for me, if I was really going to take a risk and move forward with my life, was to move to LA. And yeah, it turns out it sounds like you had a similar change. Have you, what got you into acting in the first, like, what calls you to it? Because you're talking about, you felt like you were being called by God to it. Like, can you go a little bit more into that? Like, what you love about it?
I don't know. I think I was just really drawn to these performances and these actors growing up in these movies, and just thought, I don't know. I think that's probably one of those things that can't easily be explained, because it's part of your divine DNA. Like, it's the thing you were created to do. So you kind of like, it's the same reason for why you could say, Tyler, why aren't you a mechanic? Well, I just have not personally ever been intrigued by cars and mechanics and that sort of thing. But you could go to, my mechanic and say, why haven't you ever been an actor? And he'd be like, well, just not my thing, I don't know if that answers your question. I promise it wasn't a cop out.
No, that makes sense. Like, I was thinking how it relates to me, and like why I feel the way I do about art and media, and why my dream's been to start a production company since I was a kid. And there's I'm a big fan of Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy, and one of the things he talks about is finding the thing that speaks to your soul, that makes gives your life purpose. And when you're feeling lost in life, look back at the moments of your life where you felt, you were able to live in the moment and feel that type of like you were saying, dabbing into your divine DNA. And when I've had those moments where I wasn't sure what the fuck I was doing with my life, I would look back and like, okay, well, when I was behind a camera, when I was, doing event production, or, behind a camera in live events, I remember, like when I was doing these comic conventions, doing photography and videography at some of them, when I was when I was a journalist back in college, and, covering events, I would be on my feet for like 8 to 12 hour days, some with very little food, sometimes with very little water. And, think back to where I am in those moments where I'm thinking what calls to me. And like those days are usually days I have a hard time getting out of bed. So when I go back to those days where like I have this boundless energy, I think, okay, well, that must be what my divine DNA is made for. So no, it's not a cop out. I think that's a good answer. Well, okay. So but speaking about acting, so I love talking with actors because it is an art form I have yet to understand. It is like, for me, I too also, like, I started wanting to be behind the camera, and I still am for the most part. As a comedian, I'm getting sucked more in front of it. But like, what's your process of getting into character? Like, how do you do that?
Okay. One of my favorite stories here. First of all, the short answer to what you're saying is, I think for me, it varies based on the project. From project to project, it's not, consistent one way or another. I've always felt like in certain ways, if I could tap into where, from my personal experience, if I could tap into where the character was spiritually, I could work everything else outward from there.
Mhm.
Because I think that's the core of our being. But I have not been able to to utilize that as well as I would think it could be used in the future so far. But one of my favorite stories was I was cast in this crazy film back in 2022 called Empty Inside, and it was a prequel to a film these people had shot the previous October, so 6 months before. Um, and I was playing this guy in my mid-20s trying to prove to my family that I'm a responsible adult. So I volunteered to take my nephew on this road trip from Florida to California, and we arrive in Dallas and we have car trouble, and we go to this mechanic shop to get the car looked at, and I encounter this woman that I'm absolutely captivated by, mesmerized by. I don't know how to take her. Like, she just barges into the scene and starts barking at the mechanic. And like, I'm just, not sure how to take her. Anyway, we start flirting, and she ends up giving me her business card and saying, call me. So then I go back, I go to this like motel, I check in, I put my nephew in there, and I'm like, going to go on a date with this girl. Right. And so we go to a restaurant and have chips and salsa. We shot it at Ojeda's in Dallas. And anyway, we're having chips and salsa, and we're just like pouring our hearts out over, like our souls out over chips and salsa, right? Like, she's an artist, like draws, and I'm like this small town record producer, and we're just like, having this moment. And then she invites me back to her room to see her artwork. And I'm very excited about
Oh.
this, of course. So, I'm just like throwing cash on the table. We're out, incidentally, when we're shooting that scene, we had permission to shoot in there, and we go back to this corner table, and she is facing the restaurant. I am facing the wall here.
Mhm.
And after this one take, we get up and walking out within the shot, and there's a whole restaurant full of people sitting there watching us, and I had no idea that was happening. I thought it was just us over here in the corner doing our thing. Anyway, so we go to the
Wait. So you guys were shooting during working hours for the restaurant?
Oh yeah. We had permission, and we were off in this corner of the restaurant. Which, when we moved in there to start shooting, it was a very small crew situation. But we would start shooting in there. There wasn't anybody really in that part of the restaurant, so it kind of was a
Mhm.
perfect situation. But again, we're sitting there for some time, and we're doing take after take, and I am not facing the restaurant, so I am not seeing any of this. And then we get through the scene, and we do the shot where we're walking out of the booth, and all of a sudden there's this restaurant full of people just watching us shoot. I had no idea any of that was happening, so that was wild. But within the film, we go back to her motel room, and she shows me her artwork, which I'm very impressed with. She gives me
Wink,
some
wink.
wine. She gives me some wine. I drink it, and then we start slow dancing, right? And then I pass out. And then the next thing I know, I wake up in a bathtub full of ice, missing my kidney. And there was this, she left this recorder on the side of the bathtub with a post-it note on it that says press play. And I click play, and this narration is happening, or what she's saying in this audio is happening as I am hoisting myself up in writhing pain out of this bathtub. And she's just like, so here's what happened. And she's just explaining all of this. And I'm hoisting myself out of the bathtub in writhing pain. And I go into the next part of the motel room with the sink, and I hoist myself up where I see the gauze and all the stuff she's just used to. Oh yeah, and also she's sewn my cell phone up inside of me, by the way, in this film. And anyway, and I just collapse back on the floor, and I just army crawl through this motel room in writhing pain, and then I collapse, and she calls, on the phone that's sewn up inside of me. And so I yank it out in writhing pain, and
You rip out the stitches.
I just rip it out, and she's just like, "Oh, hey, I didn't expect you to answer. Well, I have something else of yours." And she has my nephew in the trunk of her car, and you just have this ominous ending where you don't know. You leave me there, and you don't know whether I live or whether I die. Well, to get into that scene is the craziest film I've ever shot. When I got when I was preparing for that scene, I was laying on the bed in that motel room as the makeup artist is doing her work, her prosthetic work on my abdomen. And I'm listening to an audiobook on 9/11 to get myself in like this really heavy, tragic headspace, trying to, just because I really didn't know what he was going to expect. And I wanted to be able to put forth as much emotion, authentic emotion into that situation as possible. And of course, that's not exactly something that you can go to people and say, you remember that time that you were in the bathtub and you were missing your kidney because of that bad date? Can you elaborate on that? Can you lift that up and tell me how that was?
You've never had that happen to you yet?
Yeah, I've never encountered anybody that had that happen to them, but the ones that did have it happen to them all died. So, they're not exactly accessible to chat with. So what do? Well, you kind of go into like imagining, and so you just put yourself in a really tragic, heavy headspace. And of course, if somebody was in that situation, you're going to be dealing with a whole lot of trying to figure out what the freak is going on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all, so you're going to have confusion, you're going to have trauma, you're going to have physical things going on in your body as a result of it. I consulted with my sister, who is a medical doctor, before we shot that. And she said, realistically, if somebody was in that situation, they wouldn't have the strength to hoist themselves out of a bathtub. And she said, actually, because I was saying, what should I tell the makeup artist? And she said, well, she would probably need to make you very white, because she said, you're going to have lost a lot of blood in that situation. And of course, unless somebody was really trained in that skill, the odds are, any bad thing could have happened in that situation. But the origin of this story is that this woman does go harvest people's organs. And so I was part of that origin story. I hate to tell everyone watching and listening to this, but that film has never been finished. There were some issues with the producers after we shot it. And as far as I know, that material is on a shelf somewhere. But I'm like, that was probably one of the best performances I've ever given. Because we had the producer all day was like hyping this up. Like, we got one shot at this, we got one take at this. And then as we were shooting it, the phone slipped out of the prosthetics. So then we had to reset. And he kind of gave me some direction. The producer on that project was a far better director than the actual director was. And then he was like, okay, you came to a little easily, just take your time, just kind of work through it, that sort of thing. And so after they called cut, and I'm still, at that point in the middle of that motel room, collapsed on the floor, I just kind of looked up, still lying on the floor, at the crew, which was surrounding that bed behind me. And I said, was that kind of more what you were hoping for? And you could just hear the crew all unanimously saying, oh yeah, we thought that was real. And I'm like, well, praise God.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's when you've done a good job.
So I'm very sad that project's on the shelf. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where can I watch this? It's like, out of all the films you sent me, I was like, I want to see you crawl out of a bathtub with your kidney gone. I think that would have been an awesome role. I want to see how you take that character. No, that's interesting. So yeah, I just while you were talking about that, it brought me back to the story I once heard about James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano from The Sopranos, and he wasn't a mob boss yet. He's he was this hippie dude from what I've heard, and he's given one of the best performances of a mafia character in cinema or in TV history. And to the point where I've heard that like actual mobsters called him up on like anonymous lines and told him, "Hey, you're doing a great job." The only thing, yeah, dude, this is actually something I've heard. Like, apparently, some mobster dude called him from a payphone or something at like midnight one night. He says, "Hey, man, I think you're doing a good job in Sopranos. Just one thing: a mob boss would never wear shorts." Click.
Did he take that advice? Did he ditch any shorts in the future?
I don't. I mean, I assume not. I haven't finished all the seasons of Sopranos, but I remember him wearing shorts throughout the first six seasons.
I mean, hey,
but
thanks for the tip.
But I remember, yeah, exactly. But I remember him talking about that, or at least people around him talking about how he would like put rocks in his shoes all day before set. He would like stay up all night before set. He would just get himself in a headspace where he was irritable, so that way he could better portray this, you know, sociopathic mob boss. And you know, it's funny how you were listening to a 9/11 audiobook in order to get into this headspace of like helplessness and terror that you were gonna, and translate that into some situation where, you know, I mean, I hope you've never had your kidney harvested after a bed date, but you're able to, you know, make something realistic to that.
I gave it my best go. and apparently it was authentic as far as people could perceive that was on that set. So,
is that how you usually get into the headspace for roles? Like, do you listen to a lot of audiobooks in order to do that? Like, I mean, I saw you send me some of your films that are public, and you were one of them. You're a bank robber. Did you like listen to some stories about what's their name, like Bonnie and Clyde, or you know, heists like that?
I did not on that one. That was kind of an amazing situation because I had just started a new job a month before, and I had gone from a job that was very sentient to a job where I was on my feet all the time across, a very large casino, one of the largest casinos in the United States. And so I was exhausted, and I was working weird hours. All of a sudden I went from working a consistent 2 to 11 p.m. job to one day it's one set of hours and the next day it's another set of hours. And some of those hours, I would be getting off at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I was exhausted. So I was trying to get all these lines down and trying to create a character, and I was just exhausted. And so for that, I just did a whole lot of like just rehearsing those lines to myself around my apartment to try to kind of get into the core of that character and figure out, because I always want to make everything I do to be very authentic. I don't want to fake it. I don't want to call it in. I want it to be really raw and authentic. And so for that, basically, I just prayed a week or two out and said, God, I am struggling with this, and I'm going to need you to help me to open up emotionally and emotionally where I need to open up to be able to portray this. And then basically just took that leap of faith and showed up. I mean, again, I was doing the prep work, don't get me wrong, but then just showing up and trusting God. And so you just take it from the first scene, and we just kind of, fortunately for that film, at least all of my scenes were shot in sequence. There were a couple other scenes that were shot out of sequence that I was not in. But you just kind of take it in. And the amazing thing about that film was that it was a very indie film. Okay. We were shooting that in Oklahoma, and we were shooting it. My call time was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we didn't wrap till like 5:30 in the morning. And so some of the scenes I was most nervous about were the ones we were shooting at 4:30 in the morning. And it's just kind of like, I'm sitting off camera drinking coffee and and then they're like, hey, actually it would make sense for your character to have that coffee in the scene. Why don't you drink it in the scene? I'm like, bet. And so anyway, that's the amazing thing about that, is that you just kind of do the preparation and then you just show up. And it was such a redeeming or affirming thing when you heard these actors, including Meryl Streep, who says that you show up to these acting gigs and you think, or acting jobs, and you think it's imposter syndrome, where you think, oh, it's finally going to catch up with me and they're going to figure out I can't act, and you just go in there with this fear, healthy. I think it would be a healthy fear, perhaps, of it's going to catch up to it's going to this is the one that's going to ruin it all. And I honestly thought, going into that project, I thought this could be the absolute worst performance of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward several months later, we had the premiere at the Angelica Theater in Dallas, Texas, and I got an applause after that. When we got up to do the Q&A and we introduced ourselves, I got an applause. And I got a lot of people that messaged me and told me that was probably the best work I'd ever done.
Wow.
And it was amazing, even more because the Angelica is my favorite movie theater. And so to see my work at the Angelica on the screen was absolutely amazing. I just was like, I mean, I knew my work would be eventually on the screens at the Angelica, but I didn't think it'd be this soon, you know? So anyway, it was really, it was very special, to go from thinking it was going to be the worst performance ever to it actually being the best performance you've ever done at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So with, as I continue to do work, as I continue to put myself out there and to like I booked 4 gigs last year, and do them, I'm not having to go as much method as I did initially, because I have enough experience under my belt to figure out different ways of going about getting into the character. So.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that beautiful story. I'm so happy for you, man. And it's only going to get better from here.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Amen.
Speaking about amen, you talked a little bit about praying to God to open you up to the character, and I was thinking earlier, and you talking about the story brought it back up, how I once heard an interview with Matthew McConaughey. He was being talked about. Did you ever see True Detective?
I didn't watch True Detective.
Well, Matthew McConaughey's character in True Detective is like this nihilist atheist, super depressed guy. He believes there is no purpose for human existence except for, existing by, the biological nature of, any animal. And he said when he was getting into that character, he never felt closer. He felt closer to God than ever.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Because he's I'm pretty sure he's a Christian, or at least a believer of some type. And I don't know. I guess my question is, my question is, because I've watched your other films, my favorite performances of you, you have the bank robber that we just talked about. One of your most recent projects, you were All Out of Luck. You were playing this, piece of shit tech bro. Yeah. And then, in what was the other, was it Syntax? Oh, yeah. You were in Syntax. You were kind of like this conceited yet principled journalist, and in It Sucked, you were like the crappy boyfriend. So basically, what I was saying is that most of the films, if not all the films I think I've seen of you, you're playing the bad guy. Yet I know you as Tyler Slawson outside of the character, and you're like this good Christian boy. It's like, how do you like conflate with like playing these morally reprehensible characters a lot of the time with, you in real life? There's probably a better way to phrase that question, but do you ever get that feeling where like that playing these like morally ambiguous or bad characters bring you closer to the character you want to be in your real life?
Not necessarily like phase it that way. It's funny
Hmm.
that you say that because, like, obviously, when I was in Empty Inside, which you wouldn't have seen on my IMDb, I was playing I mean, I think every human, unless they're a dedicated Christian in certain respects, we're all going to have that gray area where we have struggled or that thing in our past that wasn't the thing we're most proud of. um and so you've kind of always got that, which is what that character was.
Hmm.
But then, like, syntax, I mean, I think it's interesting you said he was kind of conceited, because in hindsight I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that. But I always thought he was kind of the good guy in that situation, so that's funny. And
I
then you
mean,
go
he
into
is, yeah, he is in the main plot, but I just remember I mean, the first opening shot is you saying, I'm so and so, and I should be in New York right now getting my nose powders. I forget the phrasing of it, but it was like,
like,
Tyler would never say this in real life.
well, how did that actually go? I'm John Riley, and I shouldn't even be here. I should be in New York decorating my office and getting my face slapped by high society women. um,
Yeah, yeah, that was it. I was like, who the Tyler? What the fuck?
um,
Slapped with what? Jesus.
but to answer your question, so I really think, and oh, I didn't send you. There's one project I didn't send you. I'll send that to you after this is done.
Okay.
You can watch it while you're in San Diego. Um, I I really never thought I fully made the whole villain arc until I did the bank robber film, and then subsequently doing All Out of Luck. And it was interesting. Well, I'm not going to tell that, so spoiler alert. I don't want to spoil anything. But it was there were some very interesting parallels between the bank robber character Alex and Mark Stone in All Out of Luck. Which, I
Hmm.
mean, Mark's. I mean, as actors, we're not supposed to judge our characters. Now, we judge ourselves every day, so you can kind of allow yourself a little bit of grace with that. But when you have Mark Stone opening line saying introducing himself, Mark Stone, developer of the Victory app, we are slowly destroying the hearts and minds of American youth. I mean, he's a terrible human being if he starts off like that. Like, he knows he's ruining the American youth, and not only that, he's proud of it. So that was fun. One of the cool things about that, when I went to the premiere of it in December, also in Dallas, this time in downtown Dallas, I encountered this guy in the hallway, um, who said, who said, "Oh yeah, you were in that film," and he said, "I'm from Seattle. I just moved to Dallas," and he said, you did a really incredible job on that. And he said, even then, he said, now that I'm talking to you, I realize you have an accent. He said, you did such a good job of not having that accent in this film. So anyway, for me, like in that case, um, I have waited for that narcissistic character to come along so I could just throw myself into them. And so when that film was going to be produced, and it's the same people that um, did One Little Problem, the one where I play the bank robber. Um, there were a number of people lined up to play Mark Stone.
Hmm.
When they heard Tech Billionaire, everybody lined up for it, and I went through two auditions, and I got the role. And the producers told me it was an interesting dynamic because right before the premiere, I got text from the producer, I got text from the writer, and I got text from the director, all telling me that I killed that performance. Like, I just killed it. And the producer told me, he said, "We just really didn't think you could play a really evil villain, like a really bad villain. But," he said, "you auditioned well and you pulled it off." But I guess the same situation, they know me, like, I overthink things because I want to make sure I'm a decent human being to every person I encounter, to a fault. Even though behind in my mental capacity, I just want to tell some people some really, I just want to tell people off sometimes. But I'm like, okay, no, I am a Christian. I can't do that. You know. Um, the internal conflict every human, and certainly some Christians encounter. Maybe others are better than me, but anyway. Did I answer your question, or did I just go on a diatribe?
I don't know. I forget what the question was, but it was I mean, whatever the diatribe was, it was good. I enjoyed. That was good. I forget what the question was.
Talk about being the bad boyfriend, and it sucked. First of all, the amazing thing about that project was that I got offered the role like a week before. And so I had to kind of pull the character together. And then I, 3 days out from the shoot, we did a Zoom rehearsal at my encouragement. And I had a complete read on that character that was different than what the director had. So then I had to kind of rework that character in 2 days and show up and do it. And that was another one. You just kind of show up and you start with that first scene you shoot. But it was kind of fun because I kind of got to be that sort of brash boyfriend. And just, I mean, he's one of those that also is kind of like morally ambiguous. Maybe outside of that particular situation, that character would be fine. But in that case, he was absolutely being an asshole.
I was just going to say, I remember the question about like what, talking about like playing these morally reprehensible characters compared to who you are in real life. It sounds like acting these guys gives you like an outlet to be somebody who you can't be in real life, maybe.
Probably. That's probably a good assessment of it. And somebody was asking me after the premiere of All Out of Luck, they're like, how did you kind of get there? And I'm giving them a really polite answer. And I realize, I mean, really the truth of it is I've always wanted to play a narcissist character, because there's always like within me, there's kind of like these like desires that kind of point in that direction. But again, I'm a Christian. I can't do that. So at least within the film, I can let it all out and let it go, And it's very interesting. I'm going to tell this because we're on a podcast and you're interviewing me. I didn't realize until like a year or two ago the impact that this film had on me. But when I was like, I think it was 1996 is when the film was released. I was, 6 years old, and I went to see, my dad took me to see 101 Dalmatians, the Glenn Close live action version. And anybody that has ever seen that intro to her, where she pulls up in her, I think her car's a Panther, I think is what it is. Anyway, she gets out of that car and you see the shoe shot, and then she just, has this moment where going into her studio where everybody's running in every direction, and she's got all this awe and respect. I didn't realize until about 2 or 3 years ago what an impact that scene had on my entire life, because that's kind of, I think, where all that stemmed from, because she just had this, people just sort of had this awe, respect for her. And most of it was actually in fear, but that completely impacted my life. And I didn't realize it till about 3 years ago. But again, as a Christian, I can't act upon these things because I'm a Christian, So it's helpful to at least know where these seeds were planted along the way, so you can at least navigate these situations in your life.
Yeah, I had a similar revelation. I was rewatching one year during Christmas. It was like Rudolph and like Santa Claus is coming to town. Specifically, Santa Claus coming to the town, and the Fred Astaire character. What?
The claymation,
the stop motion. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, the Franklin Bass, I think that was the production company. I remember seeing the mail carrier as he's and also the snowman, the narrators for both stories, and how they're able to mesmerize the audience and craft this tale and keep their attention without actually being the characters in the story. And it made me realize how like I kind of want to be a storyteller in that sense, where like I said, I'm trying to be the guy behind the camera, but I'm trying to guide the story along, keep it interesting. So yeah, I had that was my Cruella de Vil. That's what I'm saying for my life. Damn, this is such a good convo. But like you mentioned earlier, I got to go to San Diego in a bit. But there's a couple other questions. Yeah, Matty, I don't know when this is going to come out, but Matty Ice, previous guest on the podcast. We're gonna go hang out and do some comedy stuff. But yeah. Okay, so what can I get to in of maybe 10 or 15 minutes? Yeah, I want to hit on, if you can, real quick. I know you haven't spent much time in the LA acting scene, but you talking about how you don't want to be a narcissist already tells me how you're different from actors in LA. So what is like how is working in the Oklahoma, and Texas film scene like? Because, when I was acting, I acted a little bit in Boston, but when I was doing creative stuff in Boston and comparing it to the creative scene out here, it is very different because it not just in quantity, quality's there too, but there is some gatekeeping. So you got to work your way up to working with like the best. But it's just the amount of opportunity here and the creative energy is just so much, bigger and better. There's still a lot of indie stuff being made, as well as major productions being made in Boston. Is it kind of the same as it is in your part of the country?
So it's been a minute since I've really been involved in Oklahoma. I was really involved in a lot of Oklahoma stuff, even if it wasn't in my hometown. In fact, my hometown across the river here is actually closer to Dallas than it was Oklahoma City. But back, in the early 2010s, there was a little more energy happening in Oklahoma City than there was in Dallas. Now that it seems to have shifted a little bit. First of all, Texas passed some incredible incentives last year in the legislature for film for the next 10 years. And, Oklahoma has had its moment because, of course, several years ago, we had August Osage County, one of my favorite films. And then in recent years, I had Stillwater with Matt Damon, and they had Killers of the Flower Moon, which was Martin Scorsese, and Twisters, the sequel to the 1997 film. So, they've had some really great films in the last bit. And I know certainly that they have had their own energy. But now all of a sudden, Dallas is different. It's been building, I think, for a few years now. And I think Dallas was having a moment in the 80s, which was before I was born, because of the TV show at that time. But all of a sudden, again, now we're having this moment where Movie Maker magazine in the last 3 weeks released their top, 25 best places to live as a movie maker. And number 7 was Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
And I cannot listen. I love Dallas, Texas. I always have said the most beautiful words in the English language are when you're landing the plane and the flight attendant says, "Welcome to Dallas." I think those are the most beautiful words in the English language. But that being said, I have not yet worked in LA like I would like to work in LA. So I can't really attest to that. My perception of what's happening in LA is, I read Deadline every day, so I know what's happening in the industry so that I'm aware.
It's bad.
Yes. I was messaging an actress friend of mine yesterday, and she was saying that the morale is not great in Los Angeles at the moment. But all that to be said, it's nice to see the energy in Texas. Obviously, aside from the film industry, you're always going to have a culture in your city that is one thing, and in your film industry is just going to be a branch in that rooted system of what that city is like. And Dallas, Texas has always been and will always have a different vibe from Los Angeles. And so I think what you have is just that difference in energy. And I think that also when there's hope, when there's momentum, which is apparently not what's happening in Los Angeles at the moment, but is happening in Dallas. I think that can kind of change the feeling, that's going through your local industry. And I don't I'm beating down a rabbit trail at this point, so I'll just stop there. But I think that's kind of, perhaps the difference. But I haven't worked in Oklahoma in several years now, since I did Truck Stop Waltz with Blake Hemrick or Hamrick. And honestly, I would have to be paid really good money to go back to Oklahoma City to work on a project. I never really liked going to Oklahoma City anyway. It's not my. I always had Dallas, and so I didn't like to go to Oklahoma City if I didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's going to hire me in Oklahoma City, I either have to really know them and love them, or they're going to have to offer me a lot of money.
Oh man. Well, dude, I really like that insight, how every place is going to have their own creative energy, their own creative environment, and how you can, and I think your career and the stuff you're going to continue doing shows, and like how the industry is moving to how it's being stratified all over the places, like you were saying with those tax incentives. I think it just shows that you can do anything anywhere now. You don't have to move to LA, even though I would like you to move down to be with us heathens in Southern California.
It will happen eventually.
Permanently, or are you just for work?
Oh, I mean, I feel like that's where God's purpose is for my life. The timing is not there at the moment. And I think that's everything. I mean, because if you jump out and do something before God's will it is for you to be there, it could turn into a disaster. And then if it caused you enough soul wounds, you may not ever try to return to it because you've had some problems there because you went prematurely. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, I always felt like God kind of was able to hold me back from jumping into something prematurely, because it's always my the tendency to, when God says something, we're doing it today. And God's like, oh, hold up. This was sort of like a 15-year plan here. But that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But every time I'm in California, I just feel such a connection to California. And when I was leaving, the week before I left, before I was leaving, I remember having this moment of realizing just how much California had become a part of me. And when I revisited, when I met you in 2023, I think it was, I just had that same feeling. I just felt such a connection to the state of California. And honestly, one of the funny things, if you ever get me where we're having drinks or something, cocktails, and I will inevitably, you got an ambulance going by. If you ever get me,
we're still DIY here. Still haven't had my sound studio set up yet. Sorry.
That's okay. If you ever get me where we're having drinks, inevitably, if I start talking about California, I'll start crying. Like I'll just start tearing up and getting all like passionate and emotional, and I just love California so much. Texas will always be my favorite state ever, but for some reason, God has my heart in California. And like I said, I'm not going to rush it. I love being in Texas, but at some point it'll all just organically and naturally flow where I'm living in LA, I believe. So.
Yeah, no, I feel that same love, man. Like I always say that I feel like God made me in the womb to be a Californian, just like, I don't know, my quirks, my personality. Boston gave me the discipline and made me a cold, grizzled old man in a young man's body. So that way, when I came out here, was able to handle the barbs and the jabs of all the jackals in this den of vipers. But the sunsets are great though, and the beaches are beautiful. So yeah, I love it here. Despite the jackals and the vipers. Shit, we're running out of time. Okay, so real quick, I want to run through two more questions. One, what advice do you have for new actors trying to get into the business? And lastly, what things do you want to plug that you've been working on?
First thing, advice. I just say give yourself a lot of grace. Don't feel like you have to swallow the elephant at once. take the first step, go to some networking events, meet some people, get the first role, work on it, put your soul and heart into it as best you can and understand too. And then go from there. Just give yourself a whole lot of grace. The other thing is plugging anything. I really don't have anything to necessarily plug other than we are putting All Out of Luck into festivals, and we've submitted it, mostly me, but 2 other people have submitted from the project. We've submitted it to 5 or 6 different festivals. It's not been accepted to any of them yet because we haven't met any of those deadlines. But if it makes it into your local festival, please come. And it is likely that I will be there and I would love to meet you. So.
Awesome. Well, keep an eye out for that. Are you still doing the vlogs?
I put the vlogs on hold a year or 2 ago, and I've been thinking about reigniting them. In fact, I've got a good idea of how I could start the first episode back, but I just want to make sure it's the right move because it takes a lot of energy and everything to put and money and time to put those together. So I got to make sure it's the right thing to bring it back. But
right.
Well, with 120 subscribers on YouTube, I should probably do that.
Well, dude, you've got 100 and you got 105 more than me currently. So, so don't stop the marathon when you're already ahead, or some better idiom that I didn't just make up. But anyway, well, yeah, well, we'll plug that. Hopefully we can get you 121 subscribers from this podcast. But Tyler, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an amazing conversation. I wish I could keep it going longer, but like I said, we've talked about, I got to brave California traffic and get down to the friends we have.
Sunny San Diego.
Sunny San Diego, also known as LA if it had its shit together. But no, I love LA. But yeah. Anyway, we'll edit this part out. Anyway, Tyler, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all who have been listening. This has been another episode of Off the Mark. I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Off the Mark. Please follow me on all my socials, on Instagram, TikTok. The handle for my TikTok is Marc Tyrrell Comedy, all one word, MarcTyrrell Comedy. And I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is my main, that's just MarC.Tyrrell, and the other one is my comedy account, which is same as my TikTok. Be sure to like and subscribe, share with your friends. That stuff helps like you wouldn't believe. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.